Hello, awesome people. My name is Mary, and I am one of your friendly librarians here in the East Baton Rouge Parish Library System. And today we are going to be making aromatherapy pendants. Just the usual heads up before we get started. Supplies are limited, first come, first serve, and I'd like to give a shout out to therizingspoon.com for this idea. So, when you come by the library and you pick up the bag, you will have a piece of parchment paper, a lump of air drying clay, and just a note, yours will come in a container so it won't dry out before you get it. You will get a length of cord, you will get a straw, you'll get a couple of toothpicks, you'll get a pipette that has a little bit of essential oil in it, and you will get some beads. Now, some other things you will need from home include a pair of scissors, something to use as a stencil or as a cookie cutter. I have a bottle cap here, but you could also use a small jar, the bottom of a glass, etc. A rolling pin, but if you don't have a rolling pin at home, you can always use a full can of soda or a full bottle, as long as that bottle has smooth sides. You don't want to use like a bumpy sided water bottle for this. And this is optional, but you might want something to decorate your pendant with. Some examples include rubber stamps, some interesting looking plants from outside, some fancy beads, etc. But that is optional. You can always just use your toothpick and carve some decorations. Alright, so the first thing you want to do is lay out that parchment paper and put your clay on it. This will make cleanup a whole lot easier. And you want to roll out your lump of clay until it's about 1/4 of an inch thick. Now for reference, that's roughly the width of a pencil or a ballpoint pen. So if you don't have a ruler, find a pencil, find a standard ballpoint pen and lay it in front of or behind your rolled out clay. And when you get level with your table and look at it, as long as it's roughly the same thickness as the pencil is wide, you should be good to go. From there, cut out your pendant. So if you're using a cookie cutter or something similar like a bottle cap, just push it into the clay, and once it cuts all the way through, tear out the extra. But if you're using something like a stencil or something similar like the bottom of a glass, use the toothpick to trace around your stencil, and then remove your stencil and cut the pendant out with your toothpick. Once you're finished with that, you can discard the excess clay, or if you have enough, you can roll it back out and you can make a second pendant. Alright, so while the clay is still soft, go ahead and decorate it so it looks pretty. You want your pendant to look pretty. So to decorate mine, I'm using a bead that I just kind of found laying around my office over here. But if you don't have any fancy looking beads like this, you can use some plants or some cool looking seeds that you find outside, or if you have any rubber stamps that have fancy designs on them, you could press one of those into your clay, or you can just carve little designs into your clay with the toothpick like I mentioned earlier. Point is, make it your own. Then, real simple, take that straw and punch a hole near the top of the pendant to make a hole for your string to go through. Just don't put it too close to the top of the pendant. Leave a little bit of space between the top of the pendant and the top of the hole. You want the cord to be able to hold it. You don't want it to break the first time you try to put it on. Now, some last minute cleanup work. If the edges of your pendant are starting to look cracked, dip your finger in some water and gently run it along the edges of the pendant to smooth those cracks out. Alright, then let your pendant dry. I let mine sit for about 2 days before I came back to check on it, and when I came back in 2 days, it was completely dry. You may be able to get away with less time than that, but the clay that I'm sending out with this recommended letting it sit for about 2 to 3 days. So if you want to be extra sure, let it sit for that 2 to 3 days. If you want to try to check on it after a day and see if it's dry by then, go for it. Alright, so once your pendant is dry, it is time to, well, make it a proper pendant. And by doing that, take your cord and thread it through your pendant. Do it in whatever way you want to do it. But the way I do mine is I fold that cord in half. I string the folded end coming toward me through the hole, and then I take the loose ends of the thread, string it through the folded end, and pull it through, and it makes a loop that it holds it. Now, this step is optional, but you can take those beads that you get in your bag and string them onto the cord as well to make it look a little fancier. But once you finish stringing your pendant on, tie a knot in the ends of the cord to secure it so you can put it on over your head, and then trim off any excess. But if you don't want to have a pendant that goes on over your head and you just slip it on, slip it off, what you could do is you can take one of those beads, tie it to one end of your cord, and then tie the other end of the cord into a loop that's just wide enough to slip over the bead, and that way it'll act kind of like a clasp. You can kind of see what I'm talking about in this picture here. You've got the bead and then you've got the loop. So real quick before we go any further, a couple of notes about essential oils. They will stain your clothes, so don't apply too much, and always remember to dab off the excess. Don't apply it directly to your skin. It might irritate your skin. And don't drink the essential oil, y'all. Just don't do it. Alright, so when you're ready for a little bit of aromatherapy, lay that pendant flat on your table. Remove the glue from the tip of the pipette. I just recommend cutting it off with scissors. And squeeze 1 drop of essential oil onto your pendant. You don't want to put too much because, like I said, it'll stain your clothes. Then tip that pendant back and forth so the oil spreads evenly across the pendant, and then dab off the extra with a paper towel. So once that oil is applied, go ahead and put your pendant on. Make sure the oil side faces out because remember, stains clothes. And as that pendant is warmed up by your body heat, it'll gently diffuse that oil over the next couple days. Once the scent fades, you can reapply your own oil, and you can use perfume oil too. I have a small collection of perfume oils at home, and I find that they work beautifully with this kind of project. And that is it. You are done. I hope you enjoyed making this. Thanks for watching, and always remember to stay awesome.